Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today, and my guest is somebody I've known for a very long time, even with the world dividing us friendship-wise, and that's a great tubist and jazz entrepreneur and all-around keen Frenchman who just happened to be born in Malibu, Mr. Gary Kiser. Hi, Gary.
How you doing, Dan?
It hurts when I do this, but other than that, it's...
What? Don't do that.
So good to see you again.
Likewise, it's been a while.
It's been a long, long time. I think last time I saw you, my son was 10.
Oh, has it been that long?
Somewhere around there, yeah. That is in person, anyway.
In person, right? I think because it'll come out in this interview that I'm the tubist with Sake Pilus.
Yes.
We've been to the States 7 times.
Okay.
And one of the times was at the Centinela Festival, which was Dan Zimbrick, and Ed Zimbrick.
Ed passed here last year.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah,
yeah.
My condolences. Yeah, you guys played together for quite a while, I believe.
Yeah, and he did so much for the idiom,
Right.
He mounted all of those West Coast jazz festivals, and of course, traveled us around the world. So
right, you like the way I turned that around, and now I'm interviewing you.
Hey, your radio personality, you're kind of used to that, aren't you?
But haven't done radio in a long time, but I guess. And thanks for that. I used to produce, which started out as the more traditional sounds of jazz on KCRW, back when it was still a little tiny room in the elementary school across the street from Santa Monica College, and then it's exploded. It's just a huge station nowadays.
Yeah, I do fairly decent research on all of my interviews, even if I know them real well. For example, like Flip Oaks was just on, and
right,
and he was surprised I actually did some research on him. But as far as you're concerned, I didn't realize you were associated with Northrop, that you were a systems analyst.
Right. Well, actually, it's funny because I'm a professional musician today, but that was not at all my aspiration as a young kid. I was always fascinated by math. My father was an electrical engineer who dabbled in music, and I always thought I was going to just be a math geek that dabbled in music. And so I have a bachelor's degree in a BS in math, applied math, and I was a software developer at Northrop from 1986 to 1991.
My word. I'm finding that to be a common thread in these interviews, that the guys who play this style of music are very often high tech and close to geniuses, except for me, of course. I ended up running the route of teaching high school and doing marching bands and things to fill in the gaps between gigs. But, we have people like Les Deutsch at JPL.
That's right.
And
you're going to have Mike on as well, Mike Moray.
Right. Well, he was my first interview.
Okay. He's a computer geek.
Yeah. A lot of these guys, and there are two things that seem to run through the Dixieland community. And one of them is high tech and people that are mathematically inclined. Although I'm having Chet Yeager come on of Night Bloom and Jasmine, and he was a math teacher.
He's not good at anything. No, he's not good at anything.
He's phenomenal. And
so I'm going to get some hate mail for that. Oh, I'm ready. I know.
So a lot of these guys, but it's crazy. And that and
Bob
trains. Are you in,
Williams, big name in the California jazz scene. He's a computer geek, if I recall correctly.
yes. Are you into antique trains?
Oh, I know. Howard is I love watching their stuff, and I go. Some people have a lot of free time on their
Yeah. Ray
hands.
Cadd is also another guy.
Ray Cadd, that's who it is. Ray Cadd and Howard Miata, aren't they two, both of them have a lot of exchanges on old trades. I have to say, no, I like looking at them, but I'm not passionate with that.
Well, neither am I, so I'm glad there's another one of us out here. That's good. So let's talk about the beginnings here of Gary Kiser. So you were born in Malibu, I guess but you claim Santa Monica is kind of your hometown, right?
Well, I was born in Santa Monica, but I grew up. My first 13 years of my life, I lived on Point Doom out in Malibu, which was like the childhood of dreams.
Oh, yes.
At night, but in the summer, when we had the windows open, I could hear the surf crashing on the beach. I mean, what's better than that?
Not only could you see the stars at night, but you could see the movie stars on each side of you in that community.
No, not at this time. Not at this point. When we were out there, most of the rich people were still in Bel Air and Beverly Hills. We were actually considered kind of the hicks. Across the street, well after we moved from there, after my parents separated, I moved into Santa Monica, and some years later, Johnny Carson bought the complex in front of me. Hollywood figures, okay, of course, Sean Penn was a neighbor. I went to high school. No, I went to elementary school with Emilio Estevez. There was the whole Penn family is out from, they were up the street. You remember Henry Gibson?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, Charlie Gibson and I were classmates, his son. And I used to give Martin Sheen, who was Emilio Estevez's father, a hard time because he was doing some TV shows, and I never watched a whole lot of TV. So I'd go over to play with Emilio, and he'd go, did you see me last night? And sorry, no, I didn't watch.
Yeah, it's funny as a child, there are a lot of stories about jazz musicians who grew up with incredibly famous people surrounding them because of their parents, and of course they were just uncle this or aunt that at the time. It's funny how our perspective changes as people change and get famous or not get famous around us.
Right. Well. Another star dropping story, but I'm not a big stargazer myself. Friends of my brothers were good friends with the Hagler family, and their daughter I should come up with their names. Larry Hagler, who did Dallas and all, married a good friend of my brother's, and she is an artist, and there was an opening. And so my brother and I went to the opening.
Hagman.
Hagman.
There we go.
Thanks, Hagman. Thanks for the correction.
It took me a while to process too. So
yeah, no, it's been such a long time. So my brother and I went to the opening, and Sean Penn was there. So I started talking to Sean, and that's speaking French. While we were speaking, he presented me to his friend Bob. And I didn't think anything about it. And Sean and I kept on talking. And later on, my brother said, so you shook hands with Robert De Niro, huh? Oh, that was Robert De Niro?
Oh, that's
I had no idea. I shook hands with Robert De Niro, not knowing it was Robert De Niro.
Showing what a small world it is we live in. Speaking of Sean Penn, did you see a Sweet and Low Down? The no. Woody Allen? Yes?
No, I haven't seen.
Oh, well, it's kind of parallels the story of Django Reinhardt. And it was produced by Woody Allen. But Howard Alden, who's an old-time guitar and banjo player, one of the best in the world now.
Player.
He's the one who taught Sean Penn how to play guitar for that movie. And I just interviewed him a couple days ago. That is Howard. So.
Oh, he's a great player. And I love the video that just came up recently where he's playing washboard.
Yes, at Disneyland.
Yeah. That was crazy. Bill Dindal was really. He made a bunch of comments that were pretty funny because I never could imagine seeing. I always see him doing this, not this.
No. Since you know Bill, you've really got to watch the interview I did with Bill Dendel. It's exactly Bill Dendel. It goes on for a long time and just jokes constantly and bantering. It's wonderful.
Well, you know what's something funny that which I really enjoy and miss is playing with Bill and Eddie Erickson. And the last time that I played the two of them, we still had our great friend Westy Westenhofer with us.
Yes.
And it was 2 banjos and 2 tubas, and we had a blast. We just had a blast.
Yeah, in fact, we reminisce about the fact Bill and I did a quartet job with Flip Oakes and Westy on trombone and me on tuba and then he on banjo. And it was an hour-long set, but we would only play for like 10 minutes because we were so busy, with Westy telling stories and Bill telling his jokes. And great people. I miss Westy dearly. He and I ended up being great friends because he played a trombone in the Misbehavin' Jazz Band.
Right.
And we actually roomed together for a long time. So, another case of me getting to know a tuba player that most tuba players wouldn't get to know.
No. Westy was a character. I had him a bunch of times on my radio program with John Reynolds.
Palm Springs Yacht Club, or
that's it. The Palm Springs Yacht Club with Bob Reitmeyer on the clarinet.
Right, Matt Johnson on drums.
Wonderful group. So you have Westy and Ralph that love to sing, and you couldn't make Bob sing if it would save his neck. He would so say, no, not me.
I know, God, such great people surrounding the style. Let's get back to you for a minute, which is kind of the reason I'm doing this, obviously. And so you went to UCLA,
right? And okay, well, I was so much into math. I got into. I'm going to take you back a couple of steps.
Sure.
How I got to the tuba.
Please do.
Because my father wanted us to play music, and so we were all forced to take piano lessons. And perhaps if it was done differently, I would have turned out to be a piano player. But because it was set, I felt like I was forced to play. I always rebelled against the piano. And as soon as I had the possibility to play a different instrument, I jumped on the alto saxophone for about a year, and I never really got into that as well. But when I got into the junior high school, first year of junior high school, Malibu Park Junior High, I'm in the beginning winds class, and Alan Lloyd, wonderful band director out at Malibu, and I'm friends with him on Facebook now. It's great to see he's still with us and still very active. He was presenting the instruments, and when he came to the tuba, he said, "Well, does anybody want to take the tuba? Everybody wants to play the sax. Everybody wants to play the trumpet. When we never have a tuba player." And I said, if I play the tuba, my parents are going to stop forcing me to play music. And so I said, "Hey, I'll take it. I'll play the tuba." And I really thought that was my ticket out of music, and it turned out it was my ticket to loving music. And I ended up playing the tuba through junior high. Then I got to Santa Monica High School. I played 3 years at the marching band in Santa Monica High School, and I was so intent on going to San Luis Obispo, Cal State San Luis Obispo for math. It was one of the best programs in math at the time, and I put all my eggs in one basket, and the basket exploded because
that's a great tune, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Huh?
I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I said that's a great tune.
It is a great tune, in fact.
I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't get accepted. They were turning people down that had 4.0 averages. Had so many people wanting to get into that program, and there I found myself in the springtime with no place to go in the fall. And the band director at Santa Monica High School, Jim Heil, was another great band director. He had just graduated from UCLA. And he said, "You want to go to UCLA?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to, but they don't have, here we are in the spring. You have to, inscriptions are in November for the following year at UCLA. And he said, "No problem." He called Kelly James, who was the longtime band director at UCLA, and I got in. I was accepted to UCLA because I play the tuba.
Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
For all you young tuba players out there watching this, huh?
There you go. There is a future to oompa.
It's surprising, but there is, yes. I actually started out as a trumpet player, as you might know.
Right.
And I ended up.
We won't hold that against you.
And my wife married a high note Latin band trumpet player, and she ended up with an old graying tuba player playing Dixieland. But,
Well, that's the way it goes, though.
That's what she gets for getting marrying a musician. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay. So now I'm at UCLA. I'm still thinking career in math or computer science or something technological. I've always been kind of a techno geek of sorts. But get into the UCLA marching band, which turns out to be a fun or a very good precision organization. It's a very good marching band. But however, what I wasn't ready for was the party time. The party time was something I've just not. No, high school, sure, we have fun. Okay, that's great. But when you get to college, university, it's a different story. And wow, I've made a lot of great friends, met a lot of friends, and had a great time. My first quarter of UCLA, Mirage or as Mitsubishi had a car they were putting out on the market, the Mirage, and they were holding a Mirage Bowl. They flew as a promo stunt. They flew the Oregon Ducks and the UCLA Bruin football teams and their spirit squads all to Tokyo. We flew to Tokyo, and I spent 10 days in Tokyo trying to maintain my studies while being a young party animal in a huge city. It was a great time, but it didn't help my GPA, that's for sure. Yeah. And then later on at UCLA, we were selected. I performed in the opening ceremonies of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, which was perhaps one of the biggest memories of playing the tuba ever had. There we are, 50 tuba players. There were 50 of us.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. I don't think I've ever performed in front of a larger audience. The Coliseum was packed with extra seating. Right. And I think there was 2 billion people watching on television. How many people? What was your largest crowd, Dan? What was your largest crowd?
You don't really want to know, but it's not quite that big. When I was running around with Zimbrick, we did the lawn of Edinburgh Castle for the festival there and some things, and we didn't get to the millions, but
Right. Oh,
so you got me there. You got me there, sir.
I don't think I'll ever perform. There was something like 2 billion people. That's a lot.
Oh yeah, my son had the opportunity. You remember the big 2,000 piece band at the Sydney Olympics?
Right.
My kids were part of that.
Oh.
I wasn't, but my kids played in that band.
Well, good. That's been a great experience.
Well, they have that would take a whole nother 2-hour show to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure it would.
And what's even funnier is I was over there right before with Ed Zimbrick's band. We were touring Australia, and I flew home because I had some gigs in LA, and they flew to Australia for the Olympics. We actually passed each other in the airport. And I didn't get to stay for the Olympics, and it was kind of interesting that way. But that's for another day.
That's for another day, as you say.
So how do you, so I mean, I know, but let's tell the crowd what got you to Paris? What got you to France?
Oh, well, okay. Well, so I got my degree, and I got hired as a systems analyst at Northrop. And starting in the early 90s, 90, 91, there was that technical recession and money started drying up. And so I found myself changing backup tapes and teaching people to use the systems that I had developed and things like that. But I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't developing. And so, and from the trade journals and everything, it sounded like that things were going to go downhill from there. So I had a phone call from my man Danny Levinson, and he said, "Hey, come on over to Paris. If you're not enjoying your job, come on over. Dick Miller and I, we got a great little quartet. We're come on over. We play on the street." I said, "You play on the street? How does that work?" He said, "Ah, in Paris, it's great. You play on the street, you pass the hat, and they're making about $100 a day." And I said, "Well, I'll cover my costs. Sure, I'll come over for the summer, and then I'll come back and find another job and continue." Well, that was in 1991, and I'm still over here. Playing on the street was fun, but what happened was I jam. People would come in and sit in. They say, "Oh, you play pretty well. What are you available for a gig?" And I said, "Sure." And so I started doing some pickup gigs. My name's got around, and I got hired to play with Sacapulse, which is in Clermont-Ferrand, France. For most, a lot of people say, "How is it in Paris?" And I said, "Well, I don't live in Paris. I'm about 4 hours south, 4 hour drive south." But because of
It's not quite
well,
all the way to Marseille, but in between.
yeah, it's about halfway down. But I had some great times playing on the street. Danny had things slowed down for him, and he wanted to pursue things more on New York, so he went back, and I found myself by myself. So I actually started. One point I just put my horn under my arm and I took off and I went to Amsterdam, and then I went through Hamburg and went up through Scandinavia. And I played solo tuba on the street, and I made enough money to eat, hotel, and train to the next city. And so I did that for about 2 months, and had some great luck. I got to Copenhagen, and I was set up. I started playing, and I finish a song, and a guy comes and taps me on the shoulder, and he says something to me in Danish. Sorry, I don't speak Danish. And he says, "Are you free at 6 o'clock?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess so." Well, apparently, I walked into the Copenhagen Jazz Festival. I didn't know that it was going. It was a complete accident. And he was playing in a group called Finn Clausen's New Orleans Jazz Band. They had an afternoon gig and an evening gig for 2 weeks. That was 12. That was 6 days. Two weeks, 6 days. And his wife was kind of grumbling that he was never going to be at the house. So he gave me all his evening gigs. So I stayed in Copenhagen for 2 weeks, and I played 12 gigs, paid gigs, and I with a fine New Orleans, a good 4-beat New Orleans jazz band with a bunch of people I never heard of. But I always enjoyed it because between the breaks, there was a banjo player, and I wish I could remember his name. Apparently, a very funny guy. He would go on in Danish. I wouldn't understand a word of it, and everybody would be howling and laughter. But when he started announcing the musicians, it was Gary Kiser Tuba Spieler, Gary Kiser Tuba Spieler, and everybody would applaud. I guess that's for me. I'd salute the audience, but I was a Tuba Spieler.
That's wonderful. Now, of course, you know, but maybe some of our younger listeners wouldn't know that in France, there's always been a very strong jazz presence. In fact, it's been a kind of a home away from home for a lot of American jazz musicians in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
And yeah.
And look at the best example would be Sidney Bechet. Sidney Bechet spent a lot of time over here. He wrote a lot of songs while he was over here. Got in a lot of trouble as
Things
well.
like Dans des rues des Antibes and
Dans des rues, Si tu vois ma mère, Les Oignons. There's all kinds of. He wrote a lot of stuff, but what that did is it kind of shaped as well as the impression of jazz, which for me, I still come from I love the West Coast sound, where there's at least one trumpet, and
right. Kirk Murphy, Lou Waters.
San Francisco sound would be two. So basically, you got a trumpet clarinet, trombone, front line with a four-piece rhythm section. That's what I always considered a jazz band. When I started playing with groups over here, because of Sidney Bechet's influences and everything, there was a lot. Most of the groups I played in had no trumpet player. It was a soprano sax that played the melody. It was the frontline instrument, which took me a little while to get used to because it's not at all the same sound. Now, but I'm not going to say there aren't any good French trumpet players because that'd be really wrong. There's some very, very fine French trumpet players, and which I really enjoy. I loved playing with you, French trumpet players. Give me a call. I'm available. Call me when you want.
That's interesting. You know, as you know, being a world traveler, is that regionally, how people play songs, chord changes, and arrangements change
Right.
depending on their influences, and that must be the Sidney Bechet thing must be a strong influence in France as far as how they play the tunes.
Right. Well, one of my greatest examples, but actually it's not Sidney Bechet, would have been Ray Charles that did that, is that if you take Georgia on My Mind, Hoagy Carmichael. Now, in that song, there's a turnaround that everybody does a 1-6-2-5, and I look. There's a historian over here by the name of Philippe Baudouin, and Baudouin has got any rhythm section player can pick up the Philippe Baudouin Grille de Jazz book. It's a wonderful book. It's also got a very intelligent way of laying out the chords. But looking through the chords that he uses on Georgia on My Mind, it doesn't go F, D, G, C.
Right, that section at the end of the bridge, right, is what we're talking about?
No, it's da 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 da. That is part of the A section, but it's actually F, E, G, C, and it's a little bit strange. And I always question that. And I actually put it up on the
right, the R kind of music.
OKOM. And Bob Ringwald replied to me, and he said, everybody plays 1-6-2-5, and he did as well, but he actually heard Hoagy Carmichael perform Georgia on My Mind. And Hoagy Carmichael plays in E7, where everybody plays a D minor. And Bob says, well, he switched. He plays the E7 now, and he loves it. It is a very interesting thing. But if you listen to Ray Charles, he does the 1-6-2-5. That's why everybody does the 1-6-2-5. But it's not. I invite you to go check that out. It's
sure.
An interesting, subtle.
Actually, I'm going to be interviewing Bob Ringwald here soon too. So
give Bob a good hi for me.
I'll ask him the story. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then ask him about that. Okay. Well, in any case, another great thing with that thing, a great quote I always enjoyed is just showing what kind of man Hoagy Carmichael was. He said, "I wrote Georgia on My Mind, but Ray Charles created it."
That is a good quote.
He tips his hat. He says, "Well, Ray Charles' version is pretty epic. It's a great song by whoever plays it, but Ray Charles' version of it is pretty wild."
So, what was the group I saw you live streaming with? Is that the Jazz 004? Is that what it was called?
Well, yeah. Okay. Let me try to say it the correct manner. Okay. What's the name of the band? Jazz band. That's how we were supposed to say it. So kind of a take. That's why we're wearing white. We're wearing we're doing a James Bond sort of thing. So Jazz Band 004 because we're a quartet, and so we're like supposed to say jazz band, but nobody ever gets it. So we go just Jazz Band 004, and that's actually I live down in an area where the family Verne. And I don't think they're related to directly to the Jules Verne, that the writer, but the banjo player in that group is the father of the trumpet player, and the drummer and the banjo player are brothers.
Okay.
So it's mostly almost a family band.
They were very good.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we're available.
And you do most of the singing with the group?
Yeah, I do most of the singing. I'm not necessarily a great singer, but I know the words and I pronounce better than most of the French people.
When they're doing early jazz, do they always sing English, or do they have they convert a few of the tunes? Do any of the tunes work in French?
Yes, well, a lot of people do. There's some people that try to translate, and with various degrees of success. Because there's, of course, if you try to do a word for word translation from any language to any language, you're going to come up with something that is very clumsy at best. Some people try to take the sense and be a little more poetic, and they can come up with much better things. And then some people just completely completely. For example,
Yes, sir. That's my baby.
yes, sir, that's my baby. There's a lot of French people sing that is it's uh, lundi de patate, mardi de patate, mercredi de patate aussi. Basically, it's potatoes. Saying Monday I eat potatoes, Tuesday I eat potatoes, Wednesday I eat potatoes. Has nothing to do with the original, and it's fun because a lot of people know it's apparently a childhood thing. So the audience will actually sing along on things like that.
Yeah, of
And
course, we've been
I'm gonna give my
slaughtering. I was just going to say we've been slaughtering the words to "La Vie en Rose" forever. So
that's right. So true. I'm going to give my a tip of the hat to a friend of mine, Christophe Adam, who has started a YouTube channel, which I highly recommend, spelled French Kiss. And if you go looking up, if you like French music, go look up French Kiss on YouTube. But put Adam, his last name is Adam, Adam afterwards. He French Kiss Adam. Otherwise, you're just going to get videos of people kissing, and it's
I have actually another channel up where I'm running slideshows over old recordings that I've done, and the YouTube for that is Daniel E. Zeilinger. But if you don't put the E in there, you get an Austrian bodybuilder.
ooh, it's not the same guy.
No, I wish.
Okay, well, so but Christoph is actually somebody. He's turning out. He's a sound engineer. I know him as a sound engineer. He's a very fine sound engineer. But he plays a pretty darn decent guitar, and he sings very well. And he actually kind of likes country music, and he's taken a lot of country songs and rewritten the lyrics. And I can't judge the level of poetry in the French lyrics, but everybody of my French friends said, "Wow, that's pretty nice." But one of the late, I did 3 songs with him. We did a C'est si bon, which is of course
Sure.
Eddie Erickson. He loves to butcher that song. Uh, and then we do On the Sunny Side of the Street, but the text is of which is Christoph rewrote. So if you go check out French Kiss, but with Adam, otherwise you're
Sure.
going to get a bunch of there's, and I can't remember the title in French. Maybe it's actually you did put on the side of the sunny side of the street, but he started when the confinement, the stay-at-home orders got put out, and he said, "Well, I'm going to try to put up a video every day." And son of a gun, if he didn't do it, he went from beginning of March all the way up to the 14th of September, and he had put up a video every day. If you like
Wow.
French music and French, it's basically modern interpretations, but very simply done. There's one that's very nice. I don't know if there are any Serge Gainsbourg fans in the audience. He's basically oh. I'm going to come up with his name. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. The old guy, the poet, he did Hallelujah. Leonard Cohen.
Oh, okay.
I would say that I don't know if Leonard Cohen would be the American Serge Gainsbourg, or Serge Gainsbourg is the French Leonard Cohen, but they're both, for me, from my point of view, they're pretty much the same kind of poet, this sort of thing. Well, Serge Gainsbourg did a song called Bonnie and Clyde, And so friends of Christoph's, just a woman and a guy sitting in chairs with their backs up to it, and just guitar and two voices, and it's a very very nice touch on something that's not at all done with just solo guitar.
That sounds wonderful. I'll make sure to check that out and give it one more time for the listeners.
It's called French Kiss. Log on to YouTube and use the research on the top of YouTube and look up French Kiss and put Adam afterwards, so you don't get a bunch of people locking tongues, unless you like watching people.
I'm not one to judge personally.
Nor I, my good man.
Well, super. And it says that you've been promoting jazz concerts and events.
Wow. That's with very small levels of success. I've been trying up until about 2005, 2007. I was able to talk a local jazz festival into bringing over some musician friends, so I would play with them, and then I would be able to book gigs with them. Like we had that was a fun gig. We had the Reynolds brothers came over with Randy Morris.
Oh, sure.
And then I played tuba with them, and Pierre Guicaro, our trombone player who came in later on in that set that you saw with the jazz band 004, this trombone player with Saccapulus. So we were a quintet, and we got a couple other gigs around. That was a fun group. I brought over, I didn't get to play with them, but we got them a couple of gigs. Have you ever heard of the M&M Trio?
No, I haven't.
That was Eli Neuberger and Jimmy Mazzy had a duet. And so I contacted them to come over for this jazz festival, and they were all for it. But the festival said, duet's a little bit light. Can they come over as a trio? So they got Joe Morani, a very fine, who was Louis Armstrong's last clarinet player. And they had a little trio that was beautiful. And so they came over. Who else? I'm going to get some people writing me afterwards. They go, "Oh, you forgot about me. You forgot about me." We brought Alan Vacher over. He played with frontlined with Saccapulus, which unfortunately I wasn't able to get him any other gigs. After about 2007, the budgets came down so that I have to get people locally. There was no airfare.
I understand.
And that's another reason why we haven't been back to the States now, because before, like I said, we've played 7 times in the States, and aside from the 2 times we played Sacramento, where Sacramento ponied up for the airfare and everything, for me to make the trip work, I would have to get 3 big festivals in a row, and then hit them up with the maximum travel expense money, and that would help cover the airfare and everything. That worked out. But as trad festivals have kind of slowly disappearing, finding 3 in a row is become almost impossible. So,
well, I was shocked when Sacramento went down.
Oh yeah.
Well, talking about the mainstay of the idiom.
Right.
Is Paris Washboard still a thing? Are they around?
They're still around. They're not the same. Still Daniel Barda and Louis Mazetier. And he's of course the heart and soul of the group, and I'm going to come up with his name. Oh, it's Louis Mazetier, who's the piano player. I'm from Daniel Bart. No. Oh, I'm mixing names. Anyway, the piano player with that group is just he's actually not a pro musician. He's a anesthesiologist by day, and is probably one of the best stride players anywhere on the planet, but he's not a pro musician at all. The others are in the group are, but the original washboard players and in them, that kind of changes a little bit. But from my understanding, they've been back. They played Sun Valley. I think Sun Valley's still happening, isn't it?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Paris Washboard played Sun Valley the last couple of years, and then they had an arrangement with the Connecticut Festival, but I'm not sure if that's still happening or not.
Yeah. I was just curious. They were one of the only French acts that I knew of, other than than you and you guys.
And you know what the hot antic?
Oh yes, Hot Antic, of course.
Don't forget hot
And
antic.
Anachronic Jazz Band is one of my
Oh, the
favorite jazz bands of
Anachronic.
all time.
Oh, see, that's where, we got people that this is trad jazz today, and of course you're catering to the trad jazz audience. But I play tuba in funk groups, and I've
Sure,
played
as do I. Yeah,
I played in reggae groups, and I love all music. But if you really question whether a modern jazz song, go look up the Anachronic Jazz Festival. They do bop songs as if it was the King Oliver Orchestra, and they are just brilliant.
yeah, their version of Move just cracks me up.
Oh, great! And to say they got back together, they I don't know if they actually made a new disc or not, but there are some videos of the and Philippe Baudouin, who was the person that put that chord book together, wonderful chord book. He's the piano player and has done most of the arrangements. He did most of the arrangements for the Anachronic Jazz Band. And I've had the opportunity of playing with most of those guys. They're still, most of them are around. Daniel Huck is a phenomenal alto sax player. I have the pleasure of playing with him at least once or twice a year. Well, it's been a little while, I guess, since then, but we cross paths. But he's one of those musicians where I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of multiple choruses, but he's one of those kind of guys. One song per set, he's going to go out and just keep going, and he'll play a third or perhaps a fourth chorus, and it just, the energy is so high, and you say there's no way he can take that up one more level, and then he does. He's
of course,
one of those kind of musicians.
Of course, the king of that is George Probert.
Right, George Probert, right. Why was it? He actually asked me to play with him for a while. About the time he was, I guess Sue Barnes was their tuba bass player,
right?
For a fair amount of time. But he asked me to sit in with him, but I was never able to. I never actually had a gig with George Probert. I jammed with him. He sat in with Saka Peterspeski. He loves Christian art. He loved Christian, and George Probert got along really, really well. And actually, I wish if somebody has videos of when we were in the States where George Probert sat in, and there was the interaction between Christian Vodkan and George Probert. I would love to see those videos.
I as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when Katie Cavera was over there running around with the Dorothy Dandridge show, I guess it was, or no, it was Josephine Baker.
Baker show.
Did you get a chance to play?
Paths. No, we never crossed paths. We exchanged a couple of messages, but we never crossed paths.
Oh, she's wonderful to play with. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm a fan.
I was just curious. That's a shame.
I mean, it's got strings on it. She can make beautiful music with it.
Absolutely, and she just has relentless time. You, as a tuba player, you'll identify with. There's some people that you play with, and you feel like you're sitting in an easy chair. It's just the easiest time you have in the world. And there are others who are playing correctly and have fairly good time, and it just doesn't work for some reason. And Katie's one of those that works,
right?
Along with like Hal Smith on drums, it just always works.
Right. I had Mark Verne, our drummer, it's almost 30 years I've been playing with him. And when people will sit in, and they generally will turn around and look at Mark and I and go, wow, oh, this is great, because they got a rhythm section behind them that's clicking, and that's a lot lot of fun. Yeah.
So
sometimes you get on a gig, you sub, and you find you're working. It's happening. The music is fine, but to make it happen, you have to really concentrate. And other times you just start playing and it just rolls. It's running water.
I don't know what it is, but it's one of those things that keeps us playing. Right. It's those moments where there's no way to explain it to a non-musician. You get goosebumps, and it's something. It's addicting. It's something you want to have happen again. So you keep playing, looking for that energy.
Right.
You know,
I've
it's wonderful.
been there. It is a great time. It is a great time.
Now, I've seen you've done some recordings while you've been over there also.
Well, Sakapudis has recorded 4 or 5 compact discs, which are all available at sakapudis.com. You can pick up, or we got them on CD Baby as well in the States.
Good. Now, could you
I
spell
don't
that name for us Americans that are
All right. It's SACA Pulses, Pulses is the name of the band, but it's pronounced Sakapudis.
what is that literally? What's that translated?
Word for word means that what that means is rhythm bag. It's a bag of pulses, but it's actually a play on word because the word pulse is pronounced very closely to puce without the L, and that's a flea. So Sakapus is a flea bag, like a mangy dog, and Sakapus is one of the best jazz bands that you could ever hire.
Really? So all of you American festival bookers and gig promoters out there, and they're reasonable and very good.
We are reasonable. I don't know about that.
Well, I'm talking about as people. I'm not talking about price wise.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, and what else have you been on?
I love it when people call and they say, "Are you free this day?" And I say, "I'm never free." Then I've done some. I did a fun cassette audio. It was a long time ago with a banjo player, an American guy that has been a wandering 5-string banjo player. He has played in something like 68 different countries, just wandering around playing. And then he hooked up with a wonderful French woman up in Paris, and he and I had a little duet we called VO. VO is when you go to a movie theater in France and you see an American film. If it's VO, that means version originale, which means you hear the English text and it's got French subtitles under it. So we created a group called VO, and we did a little bit of mix of everything. We did These Boots Are Made for Walking. We did How High the Moon. We did Moon Dance. We did Windy. Da, 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 da,
Sure.
da, da. Do you remember Windy?
Oh yeah, we used to do it in the high school marching band actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I thought no one played that song anymore. And we played it. It's just a mix of. What do you think about this song? Oh, I like that song. Let's try it. Oh, that works. Okay, it's in the repertoire. And so we had a lot of fun. It's 5-string banjo and tuba.
Yeah, although this channel is called Trad Jazz Today, I just used that. The logo looked good, and it's no longer politically correct in the United States to say Dixieland.
Right, understood.
The only people who really want to set up those dividers, of course, trad jazz in England means the 1950s revival era with Nat Gunella and all those guys.
Right.
But that's not what I'm about, you know.
Right. No, it's good because for me, I never really liked the term. It wasn't even on the reason why it's being shunned today. But for me, when I hear the term Dixieland, I think of the red vest with the straw hats and
exactly, which was never a thing in the day, actually.
No, but just what in the 60s, 70s, there was a bunch of okay, the Dukes of Dixieland would be an exception. They were a great group, but there was a lot of groups that called themselves Dixieland, and they had the garter on. And I'm not going to knock anybody down, but they all played the same 30 songs, and they all played it in a song. There was hard to distinguish them from one another.
Right.
And I always disliked the term Dixieland more because of the style. That was this the white straw hat, the red vest, yeah, which wasn't what I like to do. I prefer what now we call the New Orleans sound.
Right. That straw hat vest garter thing, unfortunately, was actually kind of the image internationally.
Right.
It was really big in Japan and the Asian countries, that look, and I don't think that Disney company had a whole lot to help that, but
no, they didn't. Sure didn't help that at all. But you go back and you look at whether it doesn't matter what color they wear. They wore shirts and ties and vests like musicians do today. They weren't dressed up in the Disneyland look, which
Right.
is fine. But
If you see the Hot Five or whatever, they're always in tuxedos.
right,
So,
right. Now, and there's looks that I would not have objection to. Something like what the Reynolds brothers do, where they're playing with the high socks and everything. That's so over the top that I wouldn't have a problem with that. But when a player wants you to wear a white hat and I don't.
well, and even worse than that is when they hand you a styrofoam straw hat.
Which is quite often the case.
Yeah, and they're awful. First of all, they don't breathe at all, and no, thank you. I actually worked at Farrell's ice cream parlor for a few years, and I had enough of that.
All right. Oh, and then if you're playing outside, if there's just the slightest gust of wind, whoop, it disappears. So what they do is they put that rubber band around the bottom of the neck. I know I'm not for that at all. So actually, I prefer the sound, the tuba that, of course, we mentioned him earlier. He's a good friend of everybody. Eli Neuberger is, of course, the tuba player that made me go, man, that's what I want to sound like. And I think I heard Matt say pretty much the same thing. Matt.
Yeah, I haven't asked Eli to be on the channel yet. I'm working up the guts to do it still.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable. He's a great guy.
Well, I used to see him at the Sacramento Festival all the time, of course, right. with Black Eagles, and we've actually met, but he's pretty intimidating to think about,
because he's very intense. He's like one of the big time pediatricians that he's the reference in the Boston area as far as children's health goes. He's written books on the subject. He's super knowledgeable. Plus, almost anything and everything about jazz and music, once it enters that his coconut, it stays there, and he remembers it all. He's a brilliant guy. But something else about him. Okay, when he came over here with the M&M Trio, he played the local jazz festival over here. He was at I don't remember which country it was. It was probably Singapore or something. He was at a children's protection of children's rights thing. He flew back to Boston. He worked for 2 days. Then he came to France, and when he got back, he went off to the Philippines or something for another conference. When he was in France, he and Carolyn, his wife, never stopped moving. I thought they were going to be crushed by jet lag and things like that. No, when they were waiting to go on stage, they were dancing to the band before them. They asked if they did. There was a meal in France. You always, when you get a gig, you're always fed. But at this festival, you're fed at lunch and in the evening. So they asked, is there a problem if we don't come to the lunch? And I said, no, I'll just inform them that not to serve a table for you. Well, you don't want to eat? He said, oh, no, we're going cross-country skiing. Oh, okay. I don't know where he gets the energy. He's an amazing man.
Well, Eli Neuberger, if you end up watching this interview, I'm coming. So let's hope we can get you on the channel to do an interview.
He's just full.
I'm also working on Dave Gannett.
Yeah.
To come on.
All right. But I enjoy Dave as well, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but Eli's got a soul. He's got a soul.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen anybody make love to a tuba on stage before.
That's right. That's exactly the case. Everybody says that. And you know what? I have his tuba. Well, it's not his tuba, but we both have a Holton 345.
Okay.
And I love my horn. When he came over, he saw that I had a Holton. He said, mind if I play it? And I said, no. So first note came out of the horn was a note about an octave below what I can get. Then the second note he played was a note about 2 octaves above what I can get. He goes, wow, it plays nice. Yeah, sure does sound nice to me.
Well, that's incredible. I think I've come up with enough courage to send him an email.
Oh, Well, are you friends with him on YouTube, on Facebook?
Yes, yes. We've
Well,
been friends on Facebook for a long time. So
yeah, okay. Well, he's a very approachable guy. He's a wonderful guy, and he's of course very active in human rights and anything protecting children, and he's an authority on the development of young boys. How what how helping raise young men, and he's a just a
well, that's
brilliant person.
wonderful. My wife is actually in the pediatric medicine, and it's a big name in the neonatal area on the West Coast. So they may
Right.
even have some things in common. Well, listen, I'm going to start wrapping this up just a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to say anything you'd like to say and plug anything you'd like to plug.
Oh, well, I'm available. My bands are available. I guess I should have mentioned I have my own. I have a group that's called the Gary Kiser Hot Four, and the reason why I call it the Hot Four, even though sometimes it has more, the word four, F-O-U-R, in English, in French, is four, which is an oven. So the Hot Four is like a hot oven. So I actually tried to make a logo of like an old style stove, and with four heads inside the little window of the oven, and but it never did work out. People didn't really understand it, but that shows basically the forgotten songs. I like to play songs that nobody else plays, which is what made it kind of hard to put the band together. To the rehearsals, I'd put sheet music out in front of people and go, what the heck is this?
You're doing things like Home in Pasadena?
Home in Pasadena, I do it. I used to we used to do that with Sacapus, but it's not on the in my this thing.
Name a few of the tunes that you're doing with the Hot Four.
Okay, well, I got to come up with a couple. There's let's see, on the spot. Of course, as soon as we finish the recording, they'll all come flowing out. But one of my favorites I love is I love everything by Harold Arlen. So I got a right to sing the blues, San Francisco. Oh, come on, there's.
Of course, Harold did all the music for The Wizard of Oz, right?
Right. We don't do it all, but I actually should try to put together a show on that. You're never fully dressed without a smile. That's out of the Broadway show Annie. And there's a bunch of things like that. Is it true what they say about Dixie? We do, but that's done.
Sure.
Oh, as soon as the interview's over, they'll have
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm a fan of obscure tunes.
Right. Oh, it's probably not as obscure as people like Bill Dindal or Eli Newberg or these guys. You never run out. But I did grow up playing tuba with Rosie McCarg for many years. Who, of course, something that I insist on, and that's something that Rosie is the verses of songs. I'm a big fan of verses, and that's something that we've with Sacapus. I added verses to almost everything we play. A lot of our albums, we play the verses. And Rosie was just there we play things like "I'll See You in CUBA" and "I Wonder Who's Kissing Her Now." Things like that, which was, of course, Rosie McCarg had one of the first gold records. He was with the Ted Weems Orchestra in 1939. It was his version of his arrangement of "I Wonder Who's Kissing Her Now," and that turned out to be a million record seller. And it was an honor playing with Rosie. And I'm going to throw out another little anecdote because I love this story. Is I was 17, 18 years old. I was just hardly knew how to play. I'm sitting in with Rosie, and he was great. He always gave me pointers and stuff. But at one point, he tossed it over to me, my solo, and so I'm thinking in my head, oh, F7, oh, B flat minor, oh, and I'm just turning it all in my head, and I could see at the corner of my eye, he's looking at me with a grimace on his face. Oh, no, he's not happy. And at one point, he just looked at me and said, "Stop thinking." And it is the best advice that anybody has ever given me. It says, if you have to think as hard as that, you don't know the tune. And what you got to do is learn the tune and be able to play it without thinking. And if for a rhythm section player, no excuse, learn the melody. You got to learn the melody, even though you don't play the melody. It's great to understand. If you know the melody, then you know how best to support the melody, because the 1-5-1-5 is not necessarily the case. A lot of songs like look at the verse to Putting on the Ritz.
Sure.
A lot of people do a 1-6-2-5, but if that one start out on the third of the chord and do a slide down, it sounds so much better. It's the way it was supposed to be done. And so if you know the melody and you know the chords, don't think, just play.
Yeah, I had a chance to go to a Clark Terry clinic when I was still mostly a trumpet player, and he said, learn all the theory, learn all the modes. When you get on stage, forget them.
Exactly. Clark Terry he's a phenomenal influence. Just the way he played was just so lyrical, so fluid. It was beautiful.
But unfortunately, a lot of the jazz programs, at least in the United States, both in high school and college level, are taught by non-jazz players. So
Right.
It becomes an exercise in theory, and people don't understand how to get there through altering the melody or hearing alternate melodies.
Well, theory is important. I think you should have a basic of understanding of theory. If, for example, if you're a rhythm section player and you don't understand what I said when I go 1-6-2-5, well, that's something that's a level of theory I think you should understand.
Oh, absolutely, especially
Okay.
in jazz. Yes.
Okay, but being able to say what is the flat 9 sharp 11, oh, okay, that's pretty a little bit over the top. That's not necessarily important, certainly for a bass player. For a guitar or piano player, perhaps, but for a bass player, we don't.
And all of you
often
youngsters
sharp
playing
11.
traditional jazz, stay away from the pentatonic scale. Oh,
Yeah, it depends on what you play. If you're playing
Oh.
a blues, pentatonic is.
oh, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand.
We get these kids who come in through rock and roll, and you ask them about who's their favorite old jazz player, and they'll say Clifford Brown.
Right, Clifford Brown, right?
You know.
Who I love.
Oh, absolutely. But he's
Now,
not considered an old jazz player in a lot of our minds.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, who's your favorite tuba player? And in my short list, I always say Jaco Pastorius. Of course, he didn't play tuba at all, but his bass lines just.
Oh, I know.
I play some Jaco stuff because his bass lines are so clear and so well placed that everybody should be able to place like that.
Absolutely. Okay,
And of
so they
course,
can.
for anybody out there, go look up Dave Bargeron's solo with the Jaco Pastorius Big Band, and he starts off Donna Lee. They play Donna Lee, and
You mean back home again
Bargeron,
back home in Indiana? No, I'm just.
That's the one. In A flat.
There you go.
Dave Bargeron, of course, was a trombone player with the Blood, Sweat, and Tears Orchestra, but he plays it, still does, phenomenal tuba. He's one of my faves.
Wonderful. Of course, you can't beat Rich Mattson either.
Oh no, Rich Mattson.
No,
we lost him way too soon.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So your recordings are all available both on your website and on CD Baby.
Right. And are you going to permit comments on? This is on YouTube. This comes on YouTube.
Yes, it comes on YouTube, and then I also share it with a couple of Dixieland groups.
Right. Okay. Well, after it's online, I'll add some comments to the stuff at the bottom.
Oh, excellent.
With some links and stuff.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So once again, Sakapulsis.
Sakapulsis.
Jazz band 004.
Jazz band. I also have a duo. I used to play with a trio. We did kind of she's a tap dancer, but she plays a little bit of percussion instruments. So it was a guitar, electric guitar, and me on tuba. And then she danced and sang. She rewrote songs like we did that don't get around much anymore, but she redid the words. All of Me, she redid the words, etc. And we discovered that his semi-acoustic was fine, but we were doing a lot of kind of a funky type rhythm. So you don't have anything a little more electric. And he said, well, I got a Stratocaster. I said, well, bring it into the next rehearsal and see how that sounds. He played 3 notes, and we just said, hey, no, you stick with the Stratocaster. And that worked out so well that we actually created a duo called Stratophone, where it's the Stratocaster and the sousaphone, and we do a duet gig where we both sing and everything. But not there. We do a American popular song, we do jazz, we do pop tunes, whatever, and we do Jimi Hendrix. We actually play Jimi Hendrix,
Wonderful.
which I love.
Does he switch to left-handed Strat when he does that?
I should give him a hard time for that. I say, hey, come on, man.
So all of you festival people out there and jazz bookers in the United States, we need to get Gary back over into the country with any one of his groups.
Well, I'd be happy to play with Americans as well.
And he'll come over as a solo act if you really want him to, and sit in with a bunch of us. But just a wonderful player, and his bands have always been top quality, beyond top quality. And he deserves some gigs, guys. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, like I said, of course, for everybody, I think it's the same way for you as me. Everything's been canceled.
Yeah, well, so, we need to fix that here soon, because it's just not the same playing online over a screen with people.
No.
You got to have the energy and synergy between players, and it's one of the reasons we do this.
No, that's exactly the case. It's true. It's fun. It was kind of novel the first couple of months, but it's time that okay, everybody wear your masks, be serious. Of course, when this comes out, hopefully everything will be past, but be serious. Let's knock this bug off the planet, and then let's get back to swinging.
Absolutely. You know, I've done a couple online distanced recording sessions for different jazz clubs in the area and stuff, and it's not the same. Anyway, thank you so much, Gary, for doing this. I know it's for lining up these times and taking up your time. I apologize for any difficulties timing wise or scheduling wise.
Oh, no. The only problem, as I mentioned before, I don't know if anybody was able to see all the red marks, but I was actually out helping a friend clean out a backyard, so I've got thistle burns all over my arms.
Yeah, don't lie. I know you were painting the roses red, so
that's okay. I'll fess up. Well, thanks so much for thinking about me. I'm honored to be on your show.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear you again and talk to you, and make sure to give my greetings and thanks to your daughters.
Oh, yeah, okay. We'll pass that along.
All right, sir.
And say hi to all your guests. A lot of them I know, and I miss them all dearly.
Come back and check out some of the interviews. It'll make you smile.
Right, I will do that.
All right, you take care.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching Trad Jazz Today with Dan Zeilinger. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Videos come out every Wednesday and Friday.